This is the Cycling Over 60 podcast, Season 3, Episode 10, my first Cranksgiving, and I'm your host, Tom Butler. I have a lot of interviews this week, so I'm not going to give an update here. But I do want to ask those of you who do Zwift to keep an eye out on the Cycling Over 60 Strava Club for a post on future Zwift group rides. I'm trying to find times that accommodate the most people and also what routes people like. Before Thanksgiving, I participated in my first ever Cranksgiving ride. I liked it so much that I wanted to do a whole episode on it. Because I'm the type of person that likes to know what they're getting into, before I did the ride, I asked Paul Tomei from Cascade Bicycle Club to fill me in on what I could expect during the event. If you are interested in doing Cranksgiving next year, you can find info on your local rides at cranksgiving.org. I will put that link in the show notes. Here's my conversation with Paul. Hey, Paul, thanks for jumping on with me for a few minutes here. I'm going to participate in Cranksgiving this weekend, and I was hoping that you could give me a preview of what the event is all about.
Absolutely, Tom. Yeah, this will be Seattle's 15th annual Cranksgiving event. Cranksgiving is like a scavenger hunt by bicycle, and it benefits the University District Food Bank, the Bird Bar Place Food Bank, and the Rainier Valley Food Bank. And this has been going on for many years. It's actually a national movement, Cranksgiving is. In Seattle, it was one of the early states to adopt this great event. It takes place on November 23rd, the weekend before Thanksgiving, so upcoming this weekend. And we had about 200 participants last year. You turn up on your bicycle, oftentimes with panniers or saddlebags and a backpack. You'll arrive at Bird Bar Place at 9 a.m. and you'll get essentially a list of food items that the food banks need. And you'll get a map of the various, mostly locally owned stores, grocery stores, supermarkets, etc., where you will go look at the list of food items that the food banks need, purchase rice, beans. Oftentimes it's dry goods that these food banks can keep on the shelves for a long period of time, as well as other essential supplies, maybe baby formula, diapers, and things that the food bank clientele need. So you'll head out on your bicycle after some instructions. Lots of folks wear costumes. We had people in turkey outfits and wearing pumpkin suits and things last year. So it's quite a festive and fun event. And then you pedal around Seattle, going to these various grocery stores, buying some of the food items. So bring a credit card or even some cash in your pocket. Plan on spending $25, $30 or whatever your budget allows. And then you return back to drop off the food. And at the end, it's weighed. Last year, we had a record amount of food collected. So we're hoping to surpass that again this year.
Well, I like that. I love that goal of surpassing last year, and it'll be fun to play a role in that. Tell me why Cascade Bicycle Club is a partner in this event.
So Cascade Bicycle Club partners in this event because it's really a natural extension of our Pedaling Relief Project. For one, the Pedaling Relief Project is our volunteer bicyclist program that supports food banks around Seattle. And we've been doing that since 2020. We've collected upward of 1.6 million pounds of food and essential supplies, as well as rescuing food from grocery stores so that we're eliminating food waste and getting it to the food banks so they can distribute it to their clientele, saving on carbon emissions by doing this all on bicycles rather than some of these trips and deliveries of food to food bank recipients would have been done by motor vehicle in the past. And so we're doing it all on bicycle. We also partner in Cranksgiving because founder Tom Fucoloro, who is the founder of the Seattle Bike Blog, which is a great bike-friendly news resource for people who live in Seattle or Washington State. Tom Fucoloro is a hero of the bike movement in Seattle, and he started this in what was a national initiative initially. he said, let's bring this to Seattle 15 years ago and organize the first Cranksgiving. And it's been growing in popularity ever since. And it really meets Cascade Bicycle Club's mission of supporting community, showing the joy of bicycling, while also essentially doing community service by bicycle, helping out neighbors in need in this time when many of us are giving thanks for all that we have here living in Seattle. And we'll be feasting with our families. And we want to make sure that nobody is denied that ability to have a nice meal on Thanksgiving. And we are also really trying to bring down food insecurity. This is a local and a national problem. Unfortunately, in this land of plenty of the United States, there is a problem with food insecurity. And Cranksgiving, the Pedaling Relief Project, are one small way that folks locally can help address that problem and spread thanks, while also gathering with your neighbors and friends, wearing costumes, getting some healthy exercise out there on the streets, and exploring some neighborhoods. I know that Katie, my wife, and we've done Cranksgiving several times. And it's a really fun event because you go to neighborhoods that you might not normally bike to. And that requires you to sort of look at your bike maps and your Google Maps. What's the most bike friendly way to get from A to B? So there's they call it like a scavenger hunt by bicycle. So we encourage anybody who has the ability this weekend, come on out to Bird Bar Place Food Bank at 9 a.m. on Saturday. And Tom Fucoloro will be there. A bunch of folks from Cascade Bicycle Club will be there. You'll get instructions, and it'll be a fun event.
Well, I love it. And, shout out to Cascade Bicycle Club for being part of this, for the pedal relief program too, the things that you do to bring the community together in ways that give back. I think it's wonderful. I think the cycling community really benefits by Cascade Bicycle Club doing things like this. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, Tom, I think you're going to be there. If you have a turkey costume, not that you are a turkey at all, my friend, but love to see you dress up. And thank you for coming out, Tom. You've been a great friend to Cascade Bicycle Club and all of our efforts here in Seattle and across Washington.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. And you mentioned Tom, and I think I will probably reach out to him too, kind of hear from him.
Yeah, Tom is, you should really have Tom on the podcast because he wrote his great book last year, Biking Uphill in the Rain, which is a real history of bicycling in Seattle, as well as the power of the bike advocacy movement and why having people participate and having a coalition of the bike community here to demand and ask for change from our elected leaders. This is why Washington State is designated the most bike-friendly state across the nation year after year, because we have folks turn out and show up and push our elected leaders to implement better policies that make it safer to bike around. Yeah, so Tom's a good dude. He's a pal of mine, and it would be fantastic to have him on the air.
Well, Paul, that was fantastic. Thank you. I knew that bringing you on would really be valuable for looking ahead to this weekend. So thanks for taking the time to be here.
Happy Thanksgiving to you, your family, and all your listeners, Tom.
All right. Now, take care.
Okay. Bye.
In addition to Seattle, Cranksgiving also happens in Tacoma, Washington, so I thought it would be interesting to hear about their event. I was able to get the scoop on the event from John Butler at Second Cycle in Tacoma. If you're wondering, John is not a relative. However, I would claim him any day. Hi, what's your name? What do you do here?
Yeah, my name is John Butler. I'm the Deputy Director here at Second Cycles, a community bike shop in Tacoma, Washington.
So you're involved with Cranksgiving. Is it this weekend?
Yeah, it's coming up this Saturday. It'll be meeting up at Lincoln Park at 12 to 2.
Okay, and what is it about? How would you describe that activity?
Yeah, so Cranksgiving is a pretty common ride that can happen throughout the U.S., and people do it in a lot of different ways. Some people promote the ride as like almost an alley cat, where you're going to multiple locations to purchase food, and at the end, everyone's trying to build a manifest of food, and then at the end, everyone meets up at like a food bank or someplace to donate food to people that are in need in this time of like Thanksgiving. So yeah, it's like a way to ride your bike, kind of do something that's maybe anti like Black Friday, more active, but you're still getting out in the craziness of it and for a good cause.
Why is Second Cycle interested in like being a part of that event?
Yeah, so it's something that we find a priority to co-promote cycling culture and anyone who's trying to progress bikes in Tacoma. It's like, if there's a reason to get out and ride, we want to make sure that we're kind of like pointing people in the multiple directions of like different types of riding and different people that are promoting different rides in Tacoma. And we're actually starting an event calendar on our website where you'll be able to find events throughout the South Sound, but specifically in Tacoma. So things that are always happening, like, you know, Saturday morning rides, Friday morning coffee outside rides. So you'll be able to find those all conveniently, like on the Second Cycle website on the event calendar.
Nice.
So that's what we're trying to shoot for, is to like, all right, if we can't put it on or if we can't help out with it, we want to at least point people in that direction, right? And that's like what's going to build kind of a cycling community in Tacoma.
So when you talk about build a cycling community, where do you think that is now? Do you think Tacoma has a healthy cycling community, kind of a start of a community? How would you describe it?
I think it's got a healthy community. I think that the people that are here are really passionate about bikes, regardless of size or how organized. And I see a lot of people like leading in a good direction in their lane where they are like efficient. And I think that's what really brings like the idea of it's a healthy cycling community, regardless of how like much it overlaps or how big it is or how many people that show up. I think it's all about how much ownership each individual feels in the community, and I feel like that's really high, and like that's what makes Tacoma have really good bones to be able to build this great big like expansive bike community. I'm really excited about that. I think that's something that like Tacoma definitely has great bones for it. The roads are a little bit wider. It's a little bit smaller, like you're not restricted by bridges like in Seattle. So it's like, it's got all these really great options. It's got like great outdoor access. Yeah, I could talk a lot about like how much and how great the riding is here. So I think like all it needs is that critical mass. It's like spinning up a flywheel. So, right, like the more people we can get out, the more people we can get on other people's rides, the more we can get like-minded people together. It's like that's how we spin that flywheel up, and then I feel like eventually it's all those things that make riding actually more fun in Pierce County and specifically Tacoma is going to be what like that's what everyone's going to love and why it's going to spin faster. So
I love that, and it seems to me like Cranksgiving is an opportunity for that culture, that cycling culture, the cycling community, to kind of interact and really kind of show their heart to the rest of the community. Do you think that's right?
Absolutely, yeah. And even this is the first ride that I went on when I moved to Tacoma about a year ago. And even then, it was like such a great way to kind of meet people. And I met people that like later on working at Second Cycle that were coming in as volunteers, and people that worked at the health department. So this is an event and a ride that we co-promote with the Pierce County Health Department. So they are the ones that put on the ride. We kind of show up for mechanical support and we co-promote it. That's mainly our like purpose there. So they're the ones that are the people at the health department are the ones that are putting it on. The people at the health department are also the ones that are on youth advisory boards, that are on bicycle pedestrian advisory committees. And I think it's one of the first events where I realized like how small the group of advocacy and the people that actually like create change in Tacoma for bikes. It's a pretty small group of people. And so it's really cool when you go out to something like this, you get to talk to the person who's on BP tag or who has like, works with, different aspects of like cycling safer in Tacoma. So yeah, it's kind of like meet the leaders in a roundabout way.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's
and
cool.
So that was like a great community to kind of just like stumble into one of my first weekends in Tacoma as part of this job. So, yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. And thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. And thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Bye now. Well, Paul and John did nothing but fire me up for participating in Cranksgiving, and I had a blast. Seeing it in action made me even more curious about the history of the event. When I spoke to Paul, he recommended that I interview Tom Fucoloro. And I'm thankful that Tom joined me after the event to talk about how it went this year, to give more history and a look at the future. Thank you, Tom Fucoloro, for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Now, I rode this year's Cranksgiving, and I had talked to Paul Tomei before I started, and he said I should talk to you about the history and things about Cranksgiving in Seattle. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do that. I guess first off is what is your Cranksgiving title? Are you like the Grand Marshal? What do they call you?
Oh, geez. Well, I guess first off, thanks for writing. I don't know if I really have a title. I
Okay.
mean, the founder of Seattle Cranksgiving, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Founder,
Yeah.
organizer.
Yeah. What first attracted you to the idea of Cranksgiving?
Hmm. Well, I had just started Seattle Bike Blog in 2010 in the summer, and I guess I had seen a story. I don't even remember what it was, maybe a story or a video about Cranksgiving over on the East Coast, which is where it started. I think I wrote a post that was like, is anybody doing Cranksgiving in Seattle? And nobody said anything. um, and so I thought, well, I have no idea how to do that. I've never organized an event in my life, but maybe I'll do it. That'll be like a way to promote the blog or whatever. So the Cranksgiving, like the main organization, sort of open sources the event, and they encourage people to host it. You don't have to, there's no fees or anything. They just have a handful of rules, such as you can't collect entry fees to participate. It should be free to enter. Obviously you have to pay for groceries, but the organizing of it should not be a money-making event. Everything purchased is donated to food banks, and there's a handful of other rules. But so long as you agree to those, you can use their assets, you can use the name. They're very open and encouraging. It's a really cool project. So I sort of just followed their guide and, made up a little sheet of rules for people to follow and wrote on the blog, hey, meet at Cal Anderson Park and we'll do this Cranksgiving thing. I don't know the exact numbers, but I want to say it was like 20 something people showed up, maybe 30, which I was very happy with. And so everyone just kind of collected food and donated it straight to Rainier Valley Food Bank, which was in Columbia City at the time. And then we met at a park afterwards and we're like, yay. And then that was the event. Yeah. And it just sort of gradually evolved from there, where it was just me doing it every year by myself all the way up until 2022.
So that first one was like 15 years ago, right? This year was the 15th
Yeah, it's
anniversary
2010.
of it. Yeah, okay. Did you hear things from people who participated in that first event that made you feel really good about it?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, most people had a lot of fun, and then there were a handful of things I just hadn't anticipated because I didn't know what I was doing, that people ran into. Like, I wasn't clear enough that when I said it ends at a certain time, that like I really wanted you to only do what you could get done in that time frame. And there were a couple people who were like going out for like a really long time, trying to do the whole list before they came to the finish. By the time they got to the finish, everyone was gone.
Right.
And they were a little upset, understandably. I think, most people got that, but I realized like I probably didn't stress that. I didn't like really explain that much. And so I could see how someone thought they had to do everything on the list rather than just do as much as you can within the time period. So from then on, every other year after that, I've been very specific about the cutoff time. I do not want you to do everything. You have to, part of this event, part of the skill test of this event is time management and, biting off what you can actually accomplish.
Well, I think you did a great job of that. I thought that was made very clear to us this year. And this, being my first event, that it was clear to me. So good job for that.
Well, you can thank the handful of people in the first year who did it wrong for teaching me that lesson.
Gotcha. Well, what are some of the challenges of pulling off a smooth Cranksgiving event?
Well, I mean, if you're starting from scratch and you want to do it very low budget and DIY, all the work really is being done by the riders. You don't have to. So it's an alley cat race. So an alley cat race is a style of bike race that I think started as like like messenger races. So it sort of tests your like bike messenger skills and your city navigation skills. And the most basic version is that you have a start line and everyone has to ride to a certain set of checkpoints before going to the finish. And the path. The track is not close to traffic. You're navigating the city that's, a fully active city. And whoever gets to the end after hitting all the checkpoints first wins. This is basically an alley cat race, except your checkpoints are staffed by grocery store workers who are going to be working anyway. And then I add in some extra challenges. So it feels maybe a little bit more like a scavenger hunt than an alley cat. It's like somewhere in the middle. But so all I have to do is I have to come up with like, grocery store locations that, several ones that are pretty easy for anyone to do. And then a couple that are really difficult so that I can, because you need some sort of challenge so that there's a clear winner at the end, so you got to put a couple outliers. Like this year, there were a bunch that were all pretty easy to get to if you're heading north. And then there was one on the top of Queen Anne, right? It's like, well, if you want to win, you got to go to the top of Queen Anne. But if you don't really care about winning, you should probably skip that one, right? But that 1 point, might be the difference. And I think the team that won did win by 1 point. So, so you gotta put some thought into that. But in the end, I'm really just handing out sheets to people, and then they do all of the work, right? So it's kind of easy that way. And for the first 12 years, the budget of this event was like $35, and most of that went into spoke cards that I would make it, go to Kinko's and make them by hand the night before, and then printing costs for the manifest, the lists of things that tasks to be completed. So it's pretty low budget event, considering how much comes back from it. I put in $35 and a little bit of time, and what comes back is like, hundreds of pounds of donations. Those were the kind of numbers we were getting when I was doing the really DIY version. In 2022, yeah. So for the past 3 years, I partnered with the Pedaling Relief Project, which is part of Cascade Bicycle Club. And we revamped the event to be a little more complicated, but I think it's a lot more fun now. So now there's the multiple food banks that you donate to. So people go out, they split off into 2 directions. Some go north to the U District, and some go south to Rainier Valley. You fill out part 1 of your sheet and donate to those food banks. Then you get a second part to come back to the start line to donate at Bird Bar Place. And so you kind of get like this multi phase event, which I think is really fun. And it, obviously brings in more food banks, but it also requires more volunteer power and, Cascade staff time to coordinate the volunteers and transport, make sure there's tables and chairs and tents and things where they all need to be and stuff like that. So it's not as simple and low budget as before, but I think it's still, especially for a Cascade event, it's extremely low budget. And, the return has just ballooned, I think, because, Cascade's got their own community that they can pull in riders from. And also, I think it's just a little more fun and engaging this way, to have like the multi-stage element. And it goes a lot more smoothly when you have volunteers. So I really, really, really love the like current state of the event. It's in a good place. It's like we're putting in just enough to make it worthwhile enough that we can get 2 tons of donations out of it, which is an absurd amount.
I think it's such a cool sight when you pull up your bike. I had panniers, I've got food in my panniers, so other people had food in their packs, but you pull up and there's a bunch of green Cascade Cycling Club t-shirts there of people that are just taking bins of this donated food inside the food bag. There's just such a cool sight there about the bikes being used and the food being brought. It's very inspiring.
Yeah. I'm inspired every year. It's amazing. I've never actually done a Cranksgiving. I've always just organized it. But I love it. It's my favorite day of the year. And, I think for anyone who's thinking about starting one in their community, there's really not a lot of downsides. One of the great side effects of there being no entry fee is that people come to it with that expectation, right? So like, they're not expecting to be served. They're not expecting you to provide them with coffee and snacks and, sag wagon services and stuff like that, right? They know that like they're going to be doing all the work and they're just happy to be donating to a good cause. And so, even if something doesn't go exactly right, people aren't going to be like very grumpy and mad about it because, they know that you're not like making a bunch of money off of them on this, right? Like they're not being exploited here, right? It's all just like very like just a very transparent event in that way. And so people come in it with that expectation. And so you just, people are joyful and they know that, well, things don't go very well. It doesn't really matter. Like some stuff got donated and that was really the whole point, right? People aren't expecting like we always have prizes at the end, but no one cares if about the prizes really. Like it's not about that. Like people like having like the structure of a competition. Some people like having the structure of the competition. It's like a motivating factor. Other people don't care about it at all, and it doesn't matter which way you go because either way, food gets donated, and the structure of the competition, is it's fun. And I guess it helps like people visualize in their head what this event is about before they go into it. But beyond that, it's just like it's such a like a low stress thing from the organizer's perspective compared to so many other events where if you pay an entry fee you're expecting it to get your money's worth, right? And so if you pay $0 then that those expectations are much easier to meet.
I didn't feel like there was a lot of cutthroat competition going on that day. I feel like everybody's there to have a good time.
There's always a couple groups.
Okay.
And they know who they are before,
Okay.
right when they get there. They're like, there's usually like 4 or 5 groups that are like, we're gonna win this. And so they're very intense about it. They're like, as soon as they get the sheet, they divide up the tasks and they split. And they all like go out and they all know what they got to do and they know when and where they're gonna meet back. They've already got their team ready. They've picked people they know are fast. Like, but there's only always ever a handful of them. And then everyone else, I'd say like this, it's like 5% maybe of participants are trying to win. And then there's a bunch of people who are like, oh, it'd be cool to win, but like they're not going to get anywhere close because they haven't done all the planning and stuff required to win. But if it's fun to think, oh, maybe I'll win and have that motivation, and then you get there and like, okay, I definitely didn't win.
Now, how would you rate this year's outcome as far as number of participants and amount of food donated?
It smashed both records. I couldn't believe it when I saw the numbers. Like I was on stage like presenting at the after party when the numbers finally came in, and I just had that moment of like, this can't be real. This seems, because it wasn't only like higher than last year, which was a record itself. Last year we had a donations record, but not a participants record. It was close, but it wasn't quite the record. This year blew them both so far out of the water. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting it to be very similar to last year. It felt very similar to last year from my perspective. So when it came in so much bigger, I mean, we had, what was it, 4,210 pounds of donations, and the year prior was 3,700 pounds. So like that's a huge increase. We had 224 riders compared to last year we had 168 riders. So that was another huge increase, and I didn't even feel it as an organizer. My first clue should have been that we ran out of sheets at the start line, and I thought I had printed way too many. But I chalked that up to, I must not have stressed enough that we only need 1 sheet per team. And so teams were taking multiple sheets, which is fine usually. But maybe like, maybe more teams took 1 sheet per person than usual. When it should have been a clue like, hey, there's way more people this year. That's why you ran out of sheets. So note for next year is print more copies. I thought I usually print way, way, way too many. So running out should have been a clue that, oh no, the numbers are huge this year.
You talked about Cascade Bicycle Club. Who are some of the other partners and how do they contribute to the success of the event?
So one partner who's not involved anymore, but who was quintessential for most of them, was Zwift Industries. So they have, they're a local bicycle bag maker and designer in Seattle. And they had this studio in Pioneer Square, kind of right by the football stadium, that they would open up as the after party for free to us. Like that's like part of that was how they contributed to the event, was they just let everyone go into the studio, which is like a really like cool looking place. It felt like a very neat, like, behind the scenes look at how, this like piece of Seattle bike culture gets made. And it was like a cool place to have an after party. And they were just very supportive of the event for years and years. So they're a big part of it. But they ended up closing down the shop and studio that they had there during the pandemic, which is also when the original version of the event that had been going really steady for 11 events straight was kind of not thrown into chaos, right? Our after party kind of blew up. You weren't really supposed to host events like that anyway. And so 2020 and 2021 were really weird, like most events were. Like 2020, I was just like, it was entirely virtual. And I was just like, go around your own neighborhood and buy groceries and donate them to your neighborhood food bank. And then we'll do like a Zoom after party or something. Like, and it was fine. Like people did it, which was really cool. But like, wasn't the same. And then 2021, I didn't get started organizing it until really late because I wasn't sure if we'd be able to. And so it was really kind of half-assed. And then that's when Cascade came in. I was kind of like waffling, like, should I just be done with it? Like, this thing that, it was sort of self-sustaining every year. I didn't have to market it because people would just invite their friends the next year. And so it was kind of this thing that just kept it, but like having 2 years off sort of like killed it enough that I thought maybe I should just let it go. Maybe it should be done. And that's when Maxwell Burton, who started the Pedaling Relief Project in Seattle before it got consumed by Cascade, that's when he reached out to me and was like, hey, should we partner with this? And so the Pedaling Relief Project, for those who don't know, is this amazing effort where people use their bikes to help out the logistics, with some of the logistical challenges that food banks have. And so that's both like food rescue, like picking up stuff from all the various places that have food that, is they're not going to sell, but is still good. So usually they offer that to food banks, but food banks have to figure out how to get there, pick it up to bring it back. And there's so many of these places that, that's like a capacity issue for a lot of food banks. It's just like transportation of that stuff because it's free, but you got to pick it up. So that's one thing that the Pedaling Relief Project do is they'll send people out on bikes to go pick it up by bike, which is really cool. Especially starting with the pandemic, but even before that, but especially since then, there's been a big increase in the number of people who need delivery of food bank items to their homes. They cannot, for whatever reason, get to the food bank itself, or it just makes it a lot easier for their lives, if they don't have to go to the food bank themselves and wait in line and do all that, or they can't make the time that the food banks, the limited windows that they're open, the food bank will put together like bags for them, but they need home delivery. And that's a huge logistical problem that, it takes a huge amount of staff time to just, get those things out there. So the Pedaling Relief Project offers up to organize volunteers to bike it to everyone's homes. And they can do it really quickly and takes this huge load off of the food banks themselves. It's a really cool organization and it's still going strong, which is amazing. Like people are just really dedicated to it. It's like a lot of people, like this is the thing they do for their community, is be part of their Pedaling Relief Project group. So you should look up the Pedaling Relief Project and there'll be a list of all the opportunities if you want to get plugged in. But since this was going, it was the obvious partner for Cranksgiving. Like, hey, let's revamp this and let's tie in the work you're doing with Pedaling Relief Project and the groups that are already existing around these food banks, and let's tie that into this big event. And so it became both a way to like, gather all these donations, but also plug, get people familiar with their neighborhood food banks and their opportunities for volunteering through the Pedaling Relief Project. So I know a lot of Cranksgiving riders have become PRP regulars, which is the goal all along. Like it's perfect synergy. So I just love this version of this event for that reason.
I think it has like a little bit of magic to it, kind of like doing events, like whether it be Seattle, Portland, or Chili Hilly, or any of the Cascade bike rides. There is this element of community and helping to build the cycling community. But I think there's something that's even deeper, like a deeper sense of community participating in something like Cranksgiving or in the Pedal Relief Project.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's direct community support, especially in years where, we're having like a national politics, guided by hatred and negativity and distrust of your neighbors and all that. This event is like a direct, challenge. It's like, no, we can get together and we can support each other, and we're going to demonstrate that ourselves, and we're going to learn how to continue doing it, the rest of the year, not just this one time before this holiday, right? So yeah, I mean, it's a very powerful experience for me for that reason too, because like, you start to lose faith in people, and then you see this and you're like, no, people are good. People are good. Like, I know it. I can see it. It's right in front of me.
And you described it as a salve.
Yeah.
when you gave your remarks afterwards, that it's like there's kind of this irritation, this kind of, like you talked about the hatred, and it's kind of wounding, and seeing that action and seeing people so enthusiastic, and again watching as the pounds of food come in, it is a salve.
Yeah. I think it's empowering to know like what we're all capable of. I mean, it's like the ultimate example of like, I guess many hands make lightweight. I guess many wheels make lightweight. I don't really know how that, I'm sure there's a better metaphor in there. But, the idea that most people who participate don't have like big cargo bikes and big trailers. A couple of people do. Most people are just hauling stuff in backpacks and, the panniers on the back of their bike. And all of that adds up to be more than 2 tons. When we all work together, we can accomplish this like enormous task, and we can move so much together. And that's very important to understand that, because we're going into an era where we're going to have to work together a lot to counter, some very powerful forces out there who want to bring negativity and want to divide communities. But it's so much more fun to build community than to divide them. And you go out there and you see everybody pulling their own weight and putting in their own money, and the only thing you see are smiles everywhere you look. Like nobody's feeling put out by it, and yet we've accomplished something huge together, and we smiled the whole way through it, and it was fun. Even though if you had told me before the event started what we were going to accomplish, I would have said it sounds impossible, but then you make it possible. So yeah, I mean, it's such a cool event in that way.
I wasn't smiling the whole time. We did do one climb that felt kind of a little bit brutal. After we came through the Arboretum, we decided to take that route just for enjoyment reasons, and then I think we hit a hill after that. Coming back, I think that's what it was.
That's part of the the test of your city navigation skills, right? It's like, oh yeah, it's really nice to ride the Arboretum. And then you think, wait, how do you get from the Arboretum to, the top of the hill on Union Street? Like, there's no way to do that without a very intense climb, is there?
Well, it was funny because one of our team members was on a bike, her gravel bike that she would normally ride, I guess was down for some reason. So she showed up on a bike that couldn't actually even shift into the easiest gear. It was an older bike and everything. And she's like, oh, I'm slow, and, I bought into that notion, and then she like would beat me up all the hills. So, but I don't spend a lot of time cycling in Seattle. So, which was another thing for me that's kind of cool about Cranksgiving is, you get to see quite a bit of the neighborhoods and get around in Seattle. So that's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my favorite things is picking the locations to send people to. And I always try to find offbeat places. So you're not just going from Safeway to Safeway to Safeway, like trying to find, send people to like random veggie stands that I know are open year round, or to farmers markets if they're available. Or I usually have like one standard grocery store like per list, just because I want to make sure you can get all the items, and it's not guaranteed that all the other ones will have every item on the list. So, but mostly, yeah, I'm trying to send people to, parts of town they might not be used to, into like the neighborhood veggie stand, that kind of thing, as much as I can, just to get people out of their usual paths.
So one partner sounded like it was new this year, and that was Central Cinema.
They're new for the past 3 years.
Oh,
So
okay.
they've been there as part of the new version of the event. It's been very similar the past 3 years. We've sort of been perfecting the process. I mean, I think a testament to how well it's dialed in now is that I had no idea that we had completely blown our estimate on participants, which just shows that, like, all the Cascade volunteers and the format that we created was capable of absorbing more than I thought it was, to the point where I didn't even notice that we had gone way beyond what I was expecting. Like 190 was like the highest we've ever done, and last year we did 160 something. So like 190 is I planned for 190, because I assume that's the ceiling. So when you get like 224, it's like so far beyond that I didn't even notice. A big part of that is Central Cinema is just a very good partner for the after party. Kevin, who owns it, is a pedaling relief project rider himself. He's got a cargo bike and he rides for the Bird Bar group. So that's why he offers the space at no cost to us. People they make money through people buying food and drinks at the after party, but they don't even give us like a limit, which is normally what they'll do is they'll say, well, you have a bar limit, or minimum, and if you don't hit that, you got to pay the difference. But they waive that for us, which is very nice. Though I imagine with 224 riders, we probably would have hit it anyway. But it takes so much stress off of us. We don't have to budget in a contingency for that, because this event is held in statistically the rainiest part of the year in Seattle. It's supposed to be a rainy weather ride. Like, part of it for me has always been demonstrating to yourself and to others that you can bike year round in Seattle. This is a really great place to bike year round. It doesn't matter if it's raining. You can still go out and go grocery shopping even when it's rainy out. You can still go grocery shopping by bike. That you can just do this year round. So it's supposed to be a celebration of that. And yet you talk about this event has a little bit of magic. When I was planning this year, started planning with brand new staffer at Cascade named Landon Welsh, who's now the volunteer manager and the pedaling relief project manager as of like barely a month ago. I was explaining to him like, oh yeah, he's like, well, what are we going to do about rain? I'm like, well, we should have some tents and stuff, but it never rains on Cranksgiving. And he was like, what? I was like, yeah, this event is like, it's plagued with good weather, I like to say. So it won't rain. And then sure enough, like, it was like the week of the bomb cyclone and like this really, really horrific weather. It made national news how bad it was. And then come Saturday and like everything chills out and it's like perfect and beautiful just for Cranksgiving. Then it starts raining again as soon as it's over.
I mean,
like...
literally, we were pulling in, we made our last stop and it started raining on us as we were pulling in to drop our food off. So it was incredible.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. I mean, we have had really rainy Cranksgivings. We've had a couple, and we had one where there was snow. But I got to look up the like odds of not getting rained on as often as Cranksgiving has, and these weeks of November specifically are like statistically like most likely to get rain of the whole year, and so somehow we dodge it every year. But we're due. I'm excited for the next big rainy one. I want to see how many people show up because we haven't been tested in a while. It keeps being really nice. But I know from the past, like, probably a little more than half will get, so significantly reduced numbers. Like, there's a lot of people who wake up and are like, never mind. Because they haven't committed. Nobody, there's no pre-registration. Right. So nobody will ever know that they were going to go and then ditched, right? So there's no peer pressure on showing up anyway.
One of the key partners that you have are the food banks, obviously. Mm-hmm. And can you talk about like how that partnership has evolved over the years?
Yeah, it was. My original plan was to rotate to different food banks every year. And so the first one I picked was Rainier Valley Food Bank in Columbia City, because I was volunteering at Bikeworks at the time. And I want to say somehow maybe they had partnered on an event or had talked to I don't know. There was some sort of connection between Bikeworks and Rainier Valley Food Bank that had happened. And I don't even remember the details, but that's how they got on my radar. So I was like, oh, I'll just do them for the first year. And then they were so appreciative and so like flexible with me as someone who's never organized an event in my life. they were just like, what do you need? And I was like, I don't know. People are going to show up with stuff to drop off. And they were like, okay. And they figured it out as it happened. And then they sent me the weight totals at the end, which I didn't even know that they could do that. And so I was very surprised. But they were just so easy to work with and so thankful for it. And they had such a good story too, because, this was 2010. So this is like the crest of the recession, right? When people are hurting the hardest. And they had seen this huge increase in the amount of people who were coming to their food bank that year, like compared to even just a couple years earlier. And the year before, so their last Saturday before Thanksgiving happens to be their last distribution day before Thanksgiving. So it's always their busiest day every year, which is also the day we hold Cranksgiving. And they said the year before they'd run out of food and they still had people in line. And so this year the riders came in and they basically were like collecting the food and just like putting it on shelves, and it was disappearing. And so we restocked their shelves like as they got empty, basically. It was it was very good timing, both, just like the fact that we started it that year and that, they were still trying to adjust to this new demand cycle that had suddenly risen, and overwhelmed all food banks, but, including them. And so it's kind of like this really good synergy. And so that story, I think, like, I thought it was cool that we were donating to food banks, but then they really helped me understand, like, no, like, people have food on their table because of these riders donated this food. And I think I just hadn't like fully internalized the scale to which this event could be helpful. And so that was very motivating for me. And I was just like, well, we'll just do Rainier Valley Food Bank every year. So that's why they've been the recipient every year. And we just have added to them in recent years. But I'm very like committed to that organization just because, at this point we're part of their cycle, right? We're part of how the Thanksgiving week works for them. Which I love that role.
And Bikeworks provided volunteers, or they kind of provided logistical support for them this year. Is that right?
Yes. So Rainier Valley Food Bank, a few years ago, they moved to a larger and a better facility. They were in like a very small space. It was actually really hard to get to for people to drop off stuff because it's in a place that doesn't have good, pedestrian safety and stuff. And people would be lined up down this like skinny little sidewalk that next to this really busy street. It probably wasn't very comfortable to be a patron, but they did a lot with very little. And it was very cool, but they knew they needed to get a better space for folks. And so they were able to raise money to move down to Rainier Beach, which is a much better facility for them, but it also would make the South End ride go really, really, really long, perhaps too long for people who are just being casual. Like the racers could get there and back easy. It would probably end up being something like almost twice as long as the U District riders. And so if we wanted to have each direction be roughly equivalent, we needed to find another drop-off point. And so Bikeworks being in Columbia City is perfect. And they offered to be the host for the drop-off and collect all the stuff and then take it all the rest of the way to the food bank. And so they had their volunteers helping to bring in the food and organize it and get it taken care of and basically run that spot, which is awesome. That's very, very wonderful of them. It's a great way to like involve them because they're such a good organization, and it's very helpful to have them contributing in that way.
So this is kind of I don't know, a complicated question, I guess, but do you feel like there's something important to show that kind of activity can happen, whether it's Pedal Relief Project or Cranksgiving, under human power on bicycles in a city?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I think, especially when I started this event, there's still such a focus on bicycling being like a thing you do for recreation or maybe for commuting. But like the idea of like carrying stuff around and, running errands and that kind of thing, it always seemed like that was like a very secondary thing, and people still thought it was kind of weird. I think it's normalized a lot since then. But yeah, the idea that you can go grocery shopping on a bike, it sounds simple enough, but it's kind of in order to be able to do that, you have to solve a handful of problems that will also just so happen to get you set up to do all kinds of things on a bike, you know. 'Cause, you have to figure out, okay, well, I need a way to carry stuff and probably more stuff than I can fit in the backpack. So now you're figuring out how to put like a rear rack on your bike so that you can put bags on the rack, or you're trying to figure out how to get, a basket, or, whatever the solution is that you find, you got to figure out something for yourself in order to accomplish that. And then once you have that, well, you could do all kinds of things, in addition to grocery shopping, right? And especially if you're getting all of that set up to work in the rain, you've got have all your weather gear, you got to have your fenders so that, your bags aren't getting sprayed with water and your feet aren't getting sprayed with water. And, it's sort of like a task that if you can do this, that you can do almost anything in the city that you need to get done with your bike, just through the simple act of going grocery shopping on a bike. So yeah, it's a little bit, it's like a subversive activity in that way, because it sounds simple, but really we're tricking you into becoming a bike radical. someone who does everything on a bike. That's my real goal.
I like it. That's awesome. What do you look for in the future as far as Cranksgiving is concerned?
Yeah, I personally really like the scale that it is right now. The success this year has me waffling a little bit, because we did zero marketing this year at all. I don't even know what emails Cascade sent out about it. I don't think they sent any dedicated emails to members. I think it was probably listed in a calendar somewhere. Maybe it was listed in an email. I just did a blog post and posted on social media. We passed the poster around, and that was it. So what's really cool about this event is that most of the people who show up are either repeat riders, or they're people who've been dragged along by repeat riders, right? Who become first-time riders that way. And so it's very, it's community built in that way. It markets itself, just through like word of mouth, which is really cool. But so the fact that it was so big this year and we did zero marketing raises some interesting questions about what the future of the event could be. Because the problem is, if it gets much bigger, then we have to scale up. And if we scale up, it's going to trigger a whole series of changes, right? So like, if it gets much bigger, we'll need a new after party venue, because we basically filled it this year. So if we want to go bigger, then we'll have to figure out either a different venue or a way to like spill out into the street in front of the cinema or something like that, right? In which case, then we're getting permits, right? And then, and then we're doing like community meetings and stuff or whatever we need to do to make sure the neighborhood's on cool with the idea of having a street party. And it just gets more complicated that way. And then it also means, well, our start line, we probably need a permit there and figure out like a larger venue for the start line. And you can see how it's just snowballs to become a big event, which could be cool. I think that, the people are showing us that there's demand for that, if we actually marketed it and put effort into getting as many people as we possibly could, and then planned around much larger crowd, the numbers could absolutely balloon. But then it becomes a different kind of event, doesn't it? Like, it's less DIY, it's less, I think part of the appeal is how little has to go in, like how few resources have to go in to it to get back so many resources. That's one of my favorite things about it. I'm also not much of an event planner, so if it gets much bigger, I probably have to become more of a figurehead, and like actual like professionals will have to take over, which is, already kind of the case because Cascade's got actual event planners. But like, they would have to take over the whole thing, really. Yeah, I'm already like at my limits on this personally. I'm a scattered, unorganized person. I'm a blogger. I write today the things that come to my mind today. And like that's how I operate. And I'm not a tracking details of everything you need, all the tiny little things no one ever notices that are required to make a big event work. So I'm not, I don't want to get in the way of the event growing, but also I don't want to lose sight of what's really cool about it either. So yeah, it's kind of, it's in a position right now, I would be happy to repeat what we did this year every year forever. But like, more, with small changes or whatever. But like that scale, I personally really like it. I don't know if it needs to be bigger, but like, so if it got bigger, we'd probably bring in more food banks, right? And it would kind of become a much more sprawling, large event, and we'd have more partners involved, which is really cool. We'd have more food on it donated to more food banks, which is really cool, and more participants as well. It could really I think it could become a really big thing, but it would also be very different. So yeah, it's kind of in this weird little spot right now where in the next year I'll be in discussions with folks at Cascade about what they see for the future of it.
Well, it's kind of a cool problem to have. I can really relate to like it changes the event, from more of a grassroots thing to maybe something that's a little less homey. But at the same time, if there's so many people that want to participate and make a difference in the community, that's kind of a cool thing too.
Yeah.
So it'll be fun to watch, see what happens.
Yeah. It's just like I have like a nightmare. That'd be like Cranksgiving, sponsored by Honda or whatever. It's like because you have to get a sponsor to pay for the added costs.
Yeah.
Right. Where right now we don't need a sponsor. Cascade is basically, more or less donating. They're contributing the staff time for the volunteer coordinator and pedaling relief project manager to like put a bunch of their time into this instead of their other work.
Yeah.
Like that's their contribution. And then they also have a staff day where everyone's in the office and they invite me in to assign people tasks like, helping to make the spoke cards and things like that and make all the signage and, whatever needs to like be created by hand. So it's like arts and crafts day at the Cascade office. So, all that has monetary value. So like, it's not like it's unsponsored. Cascade is essentially sponsoring it. But, if it got much bigger and we're getting permits and paying for venue spaces and all that, then yeah, we need an actual sponsor. And then that raises questions, right? Like, it becomes a whole different kind of event.
Well, I need to ask a question here, and I'm prepared for whatever answer you give, but we came up with a team name. You've seen a lot of team names. So I'm looking at you to give, thumbs up, thumbs down on our team name, which was mashed pedals and gravy.
Yeah.
Okay. You can't see this.
It doesn't sound delicious, but I like
you can't see this, but that was too enthusiastic thumbs up. So.
Yes. Sorry. I forgot we're not doing video.
That's fine.
Yes. Enthusiastic thumbs up. I love it.
Well, Tom, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with me.
Thank you so much for writing.
Yeah, well, it was a blast. And good luck in the future as you're planning and seeing what's going on. And like I said, I'll be following it. I'll be participating again. I know the people I participated with, which my daughter and my son-in-law were two of the people that participated. We're all looking forward to it again. So we'll be following it.
Great. I'll see you next year.
All right. Bye now.
Bye.
Judson Scott has been a guest on the podcast in the past, and he said he was going to be doing Cranksgiving this year. While I didn't get to chat with Judson before or after the ride, I did hear his trumpet charge, so I knew he was there. I wanted to get his thoughts about Cranksgiving. Well, I know that Judson did the Cranksgiving event because I heard him. And so, Judson, thank you for joining me to talk about how your Cranksgiving went.
Well, thank you, Tom. You heard me, but you didn't say hello. I can't believe it. I was surprised when I saw you posted about it, and I hadn't seen you on the ride at all.
Well, you guys are too fast. We actually pulled in late to the start, so we were busy trying to get everything, and you guys kind of got off as almost everybody did before us. Tell me, have you done Cranksgiving in the past?
No, this was my first one. Cranksgiving, I think, is always the Saturday before Thanksgiving, and I usually have a concert that night. And I'd never done Cranksgiving, and I was like, I don't know if I can ride Cranksgiving and then go play a concert. And maybe I could, but boy, that nap I took when I got home felt really good.
That's awesome. Well, so it's possible that this might be your first and last Cranksgiving, given that.
Well, we'll see. I don't know. It's things change, and I might say no to the concert and yes to the ride, because riding is fun.
Nice. So what was it like? How would you tell people about that experience?
It was great. It was really a lot of fun. I was on a team of 4. Jamie Marconi invited me to ride, and then I wrestled Bradley Hawkins into joining us. And Jamie got one of his friends at work, Orion, to join us. And so the 4 of us rode, Cranksgiving, and it was a fun team. It was fun to meet Orion, and yeah, it was great. The biking events are, it's just, I don't know, there were like 250 or something like that, bicyclists doing this. And, when you just suddenly send that many cyclists out onto the roads, we kind of take over. It's kind of fun. The time we were going, traffic was pretty light anyway. And, you get 4 or 10 bikes going down a road, and everyone just kind of has to okay, they were there first. You'd pull up to an intersection, and then you'd see somebody coming from your right that was clearly going to the same place to do the same stuff. They'd just taken a slightly different route, So it was just this fun, wonderful mass event. And it's also weird because if you think about it, sending 250 people out on bicycles to collect donations is pretty darn inefficient. If we'd all just written checks, that, I don't know, it might have been more efficient. But that's not what it's about. It's about the ride and the community building. So it was just great fun.
It was fantastic. I mentioned that I was riding with my daughter and my son-in-law, and that was really fun. And then we added a 4th, someone that was looking for a team, and it was really great getting to know her. And so I felt like we had the full deal experience where we had fun together. We got to meet a new cyclist that we didn't know before. We got to cycle around Seattle, and everything about it was good.
Great. Well, my team came in 4th.
Oh,
little flexing here, but yeah, Marconi's Mobile Market came in 4th.
Okay. Well, that was probably, somewhere around 200 slots higher than us.
Well, I will say, Orion, so Jamie, when we were setting this whole thing up, he said, yeah, I invited Orion. He always rides a fixie, so I don't know what that's going to be like. Funny. Well, and then Orion showed up on an e-bike with a bucket. So
nice. Okay.
yeah, it was, because any of the canned goods, Orion was carrying all the heavy stuff, so that was great.
That's awesome. Our team was called Mashed Pedals and Gravy.
Excellent. Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. So we felt good about that, but we did not make it in the top 10, and we did not randomly get our team name called out, but there's always next year.
Well, there you go. Yeah. So you need somebody on an e-bike there to carry the heavy stuff.
We did have someone on an e-bike, but it was not equipped with any racks. So they had a backpack on, but it worked out okay. Tell me how you see Cranksgiving contributing to the cycling community.
Well, and I don't know what you think, but I to me, it feels a lot like a mini STP. You've got people dressed up in crazy costumes. I don't know. Did you see the hot dog guy? Or, and so you've got some crazy costumes. There was a Santa Claus. Orion had some hat that he built. He had it strapped to his helmet. That's it's some character from a video game that I did not recognize at all. And so there's this crazy whimsy about the event, and everybody's setting out, kind of taking over the roads a little bit, and of course, it's for a good cause. Yeah, to me, it's really, well, I think your average cyclist is a little more caring, a little more giving, because we've all been out there, we get our second flat and we don't have another tube, or our patch kit's empty or whatever. And we've all been rescued at one point or another, to some degree. And so there's definitely, I think cycling is a very community oriented activity anyway. And of course, there are those sharks called cars that we all try to protect each other from.
I think that one of the cool aspects of it is what you were talking about earlier, where bikes kind of take over the street. Like, you get this glimpse of what would it be like if the roads were made for biking instead of cars?
It would be great. However, I went to Amsterdam this year. We did a little bike tour in Amsterdam, which was awesome. But you know what? Bikes can be really aggressive too. There's in Amsterdam, there's a road for cars, there's a bike lane, and there's a pedestrian path. And, you get on the wrong side of one of those lines, and the bicyclist is not going to cut you any slack if you're a pedestrian. It's a little, I don't know. It's I just wanted to say, guys, you got to remember what it was like when you were the ones who owned the road, and cut the pedestrians a little slack, a little, Anyway, I never saw
funny.
Anybody get hit, but boy, they anyway. So it would be lovely if the cycling infrastructure was even better. And in Seattle, it's pretty good. It's not awesome, but it's pretty good. Well above average, I'd say.
Yeah, and it seems like it's getting better all the time, and I appreciate the work that is done by Cascade Bicycle Club to advocate for more and better bike infrastructure.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we are so lucky to have Cascade Bicycle Club here. They've been transformative.
Well, thank you, Judson, so much for jumping on and sharing your perspective and your experience. And I also want to wish you good luck coming up here. I know you have a lot of events to play at, and hopefully all those go smooth.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, it's a busy time of year for a trumpet player. So it does cut into my cycling time, which I don't know. I don't feel good about that.
Yeah.
But
well, something has to pay for the bikes.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. That's for sure. Oh, and I just got new wheels, so I'm all excited.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good time to be buying stuff. Lots of sales right now.
Yeah. Well, again, good luck this season. Happy Thanksgiving, and we'll talk to you later.
All right, good to talk to you, Tom.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm going to finish up the focus here on Cranksgiving by interviewing a couple of my teammates and two people that are very dear to me, McKenna and Garen. I am now joined by Garen and McKenna. How are you guys doing?
Fantastic.
Doing great.
Awesome. Now, while you are not over 60, you deal with a 60-plus cyclist all the time, me. And I just want to say how much I appreciate how you treat your over 60 cyclist.
Well, we love you so much. I don't feel like we're particularly being accommodating to you. I mean, you and I are basically at the same level. I mean, you're way better than me, but I work to keep up with you. So it's just really fun to go on bike rides with you.
If by accommodating you mean keeping up with, then yeah, I think we're doing a great job.
Yeah.
You guys are being very kind. And McKenna, I think you and I both know the only reason that you have to work to keep up with me is I spend far more time out on a bike than you do. It would not take much before I was struggling to keep up. So, well, I wanted to talk to you guys about Cranksgiving because we participated together in it. And I guess the first question is, what generated your initial interest in Cranksgiving?
I mean, to be honest, for me, it was you. But also, even when you said Cranksgiving, I was immediately interested because I've been wanting to participate in the pedal relief project for a long time, and I haven't had an opportunity to do that. I mean, ever since we really started biking, I was like, oh, this is something I could really do to help people. And so when you said Cranksgiving and kind of an isolated event that's very structured, I was immediately interested and absolutely just yes.
Yeah, of course, you were the one that told us about it. I didn't really have it on my radar before that. And so that was kind of what prompted the initial interest in Cranksgiving. And what, even more fascinating is we weren't alone in being people who just heard about it from a friend or an acquaintance. Because when we showed up at the start line, that was one of the questions they asked was, "How many of you guys, heard about this from a friend or someone you know or family?" And about half the crowd raised their hand, I think. So I really thought that was cool that people that had been involved in this were, gathering up their friends and family and getting more people involved in it. And I thought that was really cool.
It is interesting that they really don't do any promotion of it. I think Cascade Bicycle Club sends out a notice along with a whole bunch of other cycling news, and they don't need to really promote it to get great turnout, which is a fantastic comment on the cycling community in Seattle, I think. One of the things that I think was kind of cool that I didn't have any idea of until the very last minute was that one of the food banks is like right in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering what you thought about that. If you did you find out about that at the last minute, or what did you think about having like the benefit that close to home?
It made it easier for sure that we could just get up and basically bike from our front door 5 minutes and go. Definitely made it easier. It's cool to hear about local places that we can get involved with for other events. So it felt like we were getting more plugged in. I mean, since we've moved here to this part of Seattle, that's been a big goal of mine that I don't feel like I've made much traction on, is finding places to really plug into the local community. Knowing that Bird Bar is in our community right here that we can get involved with is super cool.
I'm sure you had some thoughts in mind about what this was going to be like, kind of imagining what it was going to be like. How did it compare to your expectations?
I thought it was pretty well in line with what I expected from it. The amount of cycling was kind of something I didn't realize was going to be as much as it was. We ended up biking, I mean, probably almost 20 miles by the end of it, and we could have biked more had we been really pushing it. I was expecting a really leisurely kind of ride around the neighborhood, and then the fact that we were on bikes was just going to kind of be a side note to the charity work we were doing. But as a matter of fact, it was a lot of cycling and a lot of hills and a lot of climbing. And it was actually a decent workout throughout the day. So I appreciated that about it as well.
How about you, McKenna? How did it line up? Did you have many expectations?
I honestly didn't have many expectations about it. I had kind of an idea of what the riding intensity might be like, and I chose to ride our e-bike for the day. And so that was great for me. We wore backpacks, so typically we'd have a rack on the e-bike that I could fit more on, but the backpacks worked great. But kind of I was more thinking about logistics, but it definitely exceeded my expectations when it came to the community aspect and feeling a part of something that makes a difference. Hearing Tom talk at the beginning and just the different volunteers and how much of an impact this has made in the past and how many more people were there really made me feel like I was a part of something bigger than myself. And that was very fulfilling in, this holiday season.
It's funny, it was really fun to be part of the record, 4,200 and whatever pounds of food, which exceeded by a good amount the previous record. I found that to be a really fun thing to be a part of.
Absolutely.
And I'm wondering about the trip through the Arboretum, which I think was fantastic to do. How did that come about?
Yeah, we were debating on kind of the best way to get from the U district, back here to the central district. And obviously the Arboretum is an option when you're going that way. It's not necessarily the most direct route, but it's obviously a beautiful ride, a beautiful park. And so we just decided to, maybe kill an extra 5 minutes or so by taking the long route, the scenic route. But I think it was really worth it. I enjoyed going through the Arboretum. I don't know about you guys.
Oh, yeah, it was great.
I really enjoyed it. And, to me, like, it's kind of something about Cranksgiving. On a lot of the events we do, you do a set route. And with Cranksgiving, you go out, you're going to end up over here, and you kind of figure out where you want to go. And so us deciding to take a little more scenic route, I think that was a fantastic choice.
Yeah, it kind of makes it feel like more of a cycling adventure than just a ride. Like, I mean, you're really on a mission, and there's a lot of variables, and you really don't know how your day is going to go, and that was a lot of fun.
Do you see yourselves participating in Cranksgiving in the future?
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
I kind of mentioned how big of a deal it was for me to be part of something that really gives back to people in need in this time of year. I mean, Thanksgiving has kind of taken on a different meaning for me in, over my life. And so for me, it's a really important time of year to focus on like the truth of what happened at that original Thanksgiving time. I mean, thinking about the Wampanoag people and Native American people and how the fallout from that Thanksgiving scene that we have, that we think of and we teach in American schools, and the things that we don't teach in American education, and how it's important to really remember and to really listen to Native voices and to their perspectives on this holiday. And so for me, it's a great time to focus on family, but it might even be more important to me to really focus on how can I give back? How can I contribute to change and contribute to lifting people up? And I feel like Cranksgiving was a great example of, okay, we're going to go out and we're going to have a fun time with the people that we love. And I got to cycle with you guys, and that day was so much fun. But we're also going to use our resources to give people in need resources to have a great holiday themselves.
I think it's important what you're saying because, there is this event, that we call Thanksgiving. Part of it, I think, has always been an acknowledgement that the Native American people of that region played a vital role in the survival of the Europeans that came to this country. I think that's a fair acknowledgement. But then to forget some real tragic things that happened to those people, whether it be disease or whether it be a spirit of conquering people, I think that it's a really good thing that you are wanting to acknowledge kind of a darker side of it as well.
It's not just acknowledging the history, it's acknowledging currently what's happening in this country when it comes to the relations with tribes and with Native American First Nation people, and wanting to really change some things.
So we are speaking on Native American Heritage Day. And, I have to be really honest that I didn't even know that existed until you told me that. I think that is a comment on where we are as far as acknowledging and really being comfortable with things that happened that we would never want to repeat. And I think what you're saying is there's some things that are happening that should be acknowledged and should try to figure out a different way of being in our relationship with First Nations or Native peoples.
Absolutely. And one thing that I'm really grateful for is to live in Seattle. Seattle is the largest city in the world to be named after an Indigenous person, Chief Seattle. And there are a lot of organizations working here that we can get plugged into. And that is absolutely an area of focus for me that's really important.
Thanksgiving has become more complex to you than just a time to celebrate when Europeans came to this continent.
I mean, definitely. I truthfully would say I don't celebrate Europeans coming to this continent, and I recognize who I am and where I am, but it is hard to look past a terrible, horrible history. I would be more comfortable saying that I am happy to celebrate Thanksgiving, not necessarily Europeans coming to North America, but that the original context of what we call Thanksgiving is a harvest festival that was celebrated by Native people and the Wampanoag Tribal Confederation celebrate, the harvest time in abundance and be thankful as we head into the darker months of the year, I would be more comfortable celebrating, and I am more comfortable celebrating that than necessarily a feast at a table that never specifically happened.
I like that. And I think that one thing as a family that we look for ways to be active on Native American Heritage Day, and that becomes a time for us to really think about what is the true history, to be educated, to be open, to be transformed in the way that we think things by what really happened. And then at the same time, how do we contribute to a better way?
That sounds like a fantastic idea. And I just kind of want to put out there, it's one thing for us to say all of these things, but it's even more important to listen to the Native voices out there that do have tons of resources on learning about the true history and what you can do during Native American History Month and on Native American Heritage Day.
Yeah. So that's a task that we have, I think, for the next year is we'll continue to look forward to Cranksgiving and find people who can we reach out to. It's like, what can we be doing that would be positive on, and I think every year it's the Friday after Thanksgiving, right? I mean, that's consistent. And so, what are the things we can be doing that day? So I'm loving this. I'm loving embracing new family tradition. That could be a really cool thing.
That sounds really, really good. I'm really excited for that.
Nice. Okay, so here's an important thing that we have to talk about. This year, we're team mashed petals and gravy.
Best team name, and we didn't even get a shout out.
We didn't, but Tom Fucoloro gave us 2 enthusiastic thumbs up when I told him our team name.
I love it. I think they really need to incorporate listing out all the team names, because I'm sure there were some other fantastic ones that we didn't get to hear either.
Well, here's the thing. Any question that we'll keep that team name next year.
No. I feel like we'll definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that name and I can't think of a better one.
We are team mashed petals and gravy. And next year, do we need some kind of vests that bear our team name and logo? Do we need to be flying a flag off of a bike that declares who we are? What are we going to do?
I think we have to reach out and be powered by potatoes.
Yes. Okay. So we got some work to do. Reach out to the Potato Commission. So is a powered by potato jacket of some kind, is that enough?
I think we need something we can attach to our helmets. I saw a lot of people doing stuff with their helmets. I thought that was really fun. Potato helmets, maybe a cap that we put over it to stay warm or something. I think there is something there.
Okay, so I will be reaching out to the Potato Commission and saying next year we are full on powered by potatoes. So yeah.
We might need to have bags of mashed potatoes that we're slinging as we go by.
I don't know, maybe, yeah. I don't know. Okay, all right. A crock pot, we're on an e-bike. We got a battery. We can have a crock pot with mashed potatoes and gravy. All right, we got a lot of work to do, but I just thank you guys so much for doing Cranksgiving with me. I'm really excited. You're excited about doing it again, and it's just a really fun time.
Looking forward to it again.
Talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Well, that got pretty serious there with McKenna, but I was being genuine when I said that I think it is important to consider the complexity of celebrating Thanksgiving. I am super thankful we have found something in Cranksgiving that feeds our desire to give back, while at the same time being a super fun cycling event. However you are spending your holidays, I hope that you are still finding time to get in some great rides. And remember, age is just a gear change.